say the cost of groceries is a, quote, major problem for them.
Right.
You blame the Biden administration spending for that increase. But as vice president, your administration spent more than any prior, $7.8 trillion added to the national debt, $3.5 trillion of that before COVID. So does that mean that you're part of the spending problem?
Well, first off, thanks for the question. Thanks for letting me respond to a reference to our administration's record. I'm incredibly proud of the record of the Trump-Pence administration.
The Trump-Pence administration. Okay,
years,
Mike.
We rebuilt our military. We revived our economy. We unleashed American energy. And we appointed 3 conservatives to the Supreme Court that gave the American people a new beginning.
You weren't involved in any of that, Mike.
Now,
no one gives you credit for that.
The most best prepared for this job. And I must tell you, with all due respect to all of my friends on the stage, and even to one that's probably looking on, I think unquestionably I am the best prepared, the most tested, the most qualified and proven conservative in this race. I was a leader in the Congress of the United States. I led Indiana where we balanced budgets and had a AAA bond rating when I was governor. And as vice president of the United States, we spent funding to backfill on the military cuts of the Obama administration, and then we were there in the worst pandemic.
Mike Pence is going to make himself look
in
more
100 years.
unlikable tonight.
All that being said,
he's going to be
I was the
more
first person
unlikable
in
than
this
he already
race
was.
to say that we've got to deal with the long-term national debt issues. You got people on this stage that won't even talk about issues like Social Security and Medicare. I mean, Vivek, you recently said a president
attacking
can't do
Vivek,
everything.
bingo square.
Well, I got news for you, Vivek. I've been in the hallway. I've been in the West Wing. A president of the United States has to confront every crisis facing America. I will put our nation back on the path to growth and prosperity and restore fiscal responsibility, just as I did in Congress and as governor,
Mr. Vice President,
and when I was vice president.
But
Yeah, I mean,
hold on. You were named earlier. I'm going to get Vivek first.
We'll get to both of
Yeah,
them.
this isn't that complicated, guys. Unlock American energy, drill, frack, burn coal, embrace nuclear.
Yes!
Go back to work
Yes!
by no longer paying them more to stay at home. Reform the U.S. Fed, stabilize the U.S. dollar, and go to war. The only war that I will declare as U.S. president will be the war on the federal administrative state that is the source of those toxic regulations.
Yes!
Acting like a wet blanket on the economy. So I'm not sure I exactly understood Mike Pence's comment, but I'll let you all parse that out. For me, it's pretty simple. That's something a U.S. president can do with focus, and I'll deliver on it.
Well, let me explain it to you. Let me explain it to you, Vivek, if I can. I'll go slower this time.
Look,
Look, I was a House conservative leader before it was cool. I actually pushed a deficit reduction act. That was the last time we actually reduced the national debt in the United States, when I was the leader of House conservatives. I balanced budgets and cut taxes when I was governor. I mean, look, Joe Biden has weakened this country at home and abroad. Now is not the time for on-the-job training. We don't need to bring in a rookie. We don't need to bring in people without experience.
Yay! Bingo square. Someone got food. Bingo square.
I just want to respond to Mike for 1 second because he invoked me back. Listen, now that everybody's gotten their memorized, pre-prepared slogans out of the way, we can actually have a real discussion now. The reality and the fact of the matter is...
Is that one of yours?
Not really, Mike, actually. We're just going to have some fun tonight. And the reality is you have a bunch of people, professional politicians, super PAC puppets, following slogans handed over to them by their 400-page super PACs last week. The real choice we face in this primary is this. Do you want a super PAC puppet, or do you want a patriot who speaks the truth? Do you want incremental reform, which is what you're hearing about, or do you want revolution?
Okay.
And I stand on the side of the American revolution.
I've got to address
rather than
We're going to
this
take control back here.
We need everyone
Remember?
to have a moment on the economy.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
Vivek is having the most fun, I feel like. I feel like he's the most relaxed.
What does the President Ramaswamy do about guns?
So the reality is we have a crime wave in this country and we know how to fix it. The question is, do we actually have the spine to do it? More cops in the streets who are on the streets able to do their jobs without looking over their shoulder for getting sued. And we also have a mental health epidemic in this country. Just over the same period that we have closed mental health institutions, we have seen a spike in violent crime. Do we have the spine to bring them back? I think we should. As president, I will. But it's not just drugging up people in those psychiatric institutions with Zoloft and Seroquel. it's a deeper issue. I think faith-based approaches can play a role here too. We're in the middle of a national identity crisis. And I say this as a member of my generation. The problem in our country right now, the reason we have that mental health epidemic, is that people are so hungry for purpose and meaning at a time when family, faith, patriotism, hard work have all disappeared. What we really need is a tonal reset from the top, saying that this is what it means to be an American. Yes, we will stand for the rule of law. Yes, we will close the southern border where criminals are coming in every day. And yes, we will back law enforcement because we remember who we really are. And that's also how we address that mental health epidemic in the next generation that is directly leading to violent crime across this country.
He has the most executive presence of the entire state. Am I wrong?
Identity crisis, Vivek.
I think
We're not looking for a new national identity. The American people are the most faith-filled,
He's a little slight.
freedom-loving, idealistic, hardworking people the world has ever known. We just need government as good as our people.
Well, Mike, I think the difference is
Well,
you might have.
I don't know about
you might
that, and
have
I
on
don't
the
think it
stage,
makes a
it's Morning in
difference,
America
to be
speech. It
honest.
is not Morning in America. We live in a dark moment, and we have to confront the fact that we're in an internal, sort of cold cultural civil
You
war,
are
and we have to
equating the
recognize
American
that in
people
order
with the
to actually
failed
win.
government in Washington, D.C. We just need government as good as our people again.
So, let me just finish addressing that slogan because I don't know what that slogan means. We need to shut down the administrative state. That's actually how we translate.
Let's talk
The
about
U.S. has committed
education.
nearly $77 billion in aid to the Ukraine
Oh,
war.
no.
The administration is now asking Congress for $24 billion more. Regardless of that, the specifics of that plan, is there anyone on stage who would not support the increase of more funding to Ukraine?
We would not
Yes,
support it.
look at how high Vivek's hand went. Vivek, only one on the stage who doesn't want to fund
Mr.
Ukraine
Ramaswamy.
anymore. Thank you.
But you're saying you would not too, Governor DeSantis?
I will have Europe pull their weight.
But you
Right
would-
now, they're not
The rest
doing
of
it.
them are
And I think
fucking
we should
warmongers.
And I think
All
our
of them.
support should be contingent on them doing it. And I would have support in China to be able to take China and do what we need to do with China.
Mr. Ramaswamy,
so
you would not
happy.
support an increase of funding to Ukraine.
I would not. And I think that this is disastrous, that we are protected
Yes.
against an invasion across somebody else's border when we should use those same military resources to prevent across the invasion of our own southern border here in the United States of America.
Oh, that
We are
was
driving
brilliant.
Russia further into China's hands. The Russia-China alliance is the single greatest threat we face. And I find it offensive that we have professional politicians on the stage that will make a pilgrimage to Kyiv, to their Pope, Zelensky, without doing the same thing for people in Maui or the south side of Chicago
Okay, all right,
or
Brett.
Kensington. I think
Hold
that we
on.
have to put
I'm
the
in.
interests of Americans first,
He was referring-
secure our own border instead of somebody else's.
He was referring-
And the reality is, this is also how we project strength
And he
by
says
making
we're
America
using
strong
soundbite.
at home.
Thank you.
All right.
I have a question
You were
for
mentioned-
Governor Haley. We'll come back.
Vice President Pence was mentioned. You get 30 seconds.
Yeah, well, let me be clear. Anybody that thinks that we can't solve the problems here in the United States and be the leader of the free world has a pretty small view of the greatest nation on earth.
That is incorrect.
We can do both, Vivek. We've done both. We've been the leader of the free world and the arsenal of democracy for years. The Reagan Doctrine years ago made it clear. We said, if you're
That's
willing
exactly
to fight the
the
communists
opposite
on
of
your
America
soil,
first.
we'll give you the means to fight
Mike
them there
Pence is
so
like
our troops
undoing
don't have
Trump's
to fight
foreign
them.
policy
Vivek,
right
if
before
we did
you.
a giveaway
Judas!
that you want to
Judas,
give to Putin
traitor.
in his land, it's not going to be too long before he rolls across a NATO border. And frankly, our men and women of our armed forces are going to have to go and fight him. I want to let the Ukrainians fight and drive Putin and the Russians back out into Russia.
I want to just
So our
briefly
troops
address
aren't going to have
Pence.
to make that
Vice
fight.
President Pence. I have a
30
newsflash. The
seconds.
USSR does not exist anymore. It fell back in 1990.
Did I say
the real
USSR?
threat? You talked about the communists, and the real communists that we have to address
Do you
right
not
now
have
is
any
the
idea what
I let
Vladimir Putin's aims
you
are?
already spoke. Now I actually have something to say.
Vladimir
30
Putin has been saying he wants to reestablish
Shut
the
up,
old
Mike.
Soviet sphere
You've made
of
your point,
influence.
Vice President.
Vice
Now, if
President
you think
Pence,
I'm
you're
sorry if I insulted him by calling him a communist. He is a dictator and a murderer. And the United States of America needs to stand against authoritarianism. especially
Mr.
with
Ramaswamy,
Putin.
30
Briefly
seconds.
respond. The real threat we face today is communist China. And we are driving Russia further into China's arms The Russia-China military alliance is the single greatest threat we face. Nobody in either political party's talking about it. And I am the only non-neocon on this stage who will keep us out of war.
Mr. Vice President, we can't hear. Mr. Vice President,
is to give Russia
Mr. Vice President.
Shut up, Mike.
Mr. Vice President.
give them a promise that Ukraine will never be in NATO, and then somehow
Mr. Vice President.
China will not think about taking Taiwan. We achieve peace through strength.
Mr. Vice
And
President.
America needs to stand for freedom.
Okay.
Really?
Here we go.
We
Really?
need to reestablish
Mike
the
Pence
rules.
exposed
When we hear
neocon
this
shill,
bell-
neocon warmonger.
That means your time's
We're
done.
done.
So, Mr. Vice President, we appreciate your aggressiveness here. 30 seconds is 30 seconds. Mr. Ramaswamy, you were mentioned. You get 30 seconds.
So the reality is that today, Ukraine is not a priority for the United States of America. And I think that the same people who took us into the Iraq War, the same people who took us into the Vietnam War, you cannot start another no-win war. And I do not want to get to the point where we're sending our military resources abroad when we could be better using them here at home to protect our own borders, protect the homeland.
All right.
That will be my top priority in foreign
I think
policy.
we gave you more
Protect
than
this
the 30
homeland.
seconds in the rebut. So I do want to get to some other people because everybody, we respect everybody's time here. So we're going to start the lightning round. And the first question is going to go to you, Vice President. So this is a lightning round of questions, 30-second answers, please.
Ooh.
President Biden will be 82 years old on Inauguration Day. Nearly 70% of Americans say that he is too old to serve. Should presidents have to pass a mental and physical
Yes.
test in order to serve, Vice President
Yes.
Pence?
Well, it might be a good idea to have everybody in Washington, D.C. pass a mental and but 30 seconds, no. The American people can make those judgments. But let me say, I'm running for president of the United States because we don't need a president who's too old. And we don't need a president who's too young. We need a president who's been there. We need a president who
the
knows how
Constitution
Congress
takes
works,
care of that,
how the
Mike.
White House works, how states work. And on this education issue, Martha, I was
is
fighting
so
against No
triggered by
Child Left
Vivek.
Behind when Republicans were doubling the
He is,
Department
right?
of Education.
Oh, yeah.
I'll also shut down the federal Department of Education. And when I was governor, we doubled the size of the largest school choice program in America, and we'll give school choice to every family in America
So,
when I'm in the White House.
This is a lightning round, Mr. Ramaswamy. I think you were mentioned there. You're 38. You're the youngest on the stage. You've said, and you just said, you want a civics test or public service for those under 25 to be able to vote. So the question is, do you want a mental acuity test for presidents over 75?
I believe in the people of this country to tell the difference between somebody who's an automaton and somebody who's actually a thinking agent in the White House, which we don't have in there today. And I will tell you, I want to address Vice President Pence's comment. I think we do need somebody of a different generation to lead this nation forward. Look at the way I've run this campaign. Go into the south side of Chicago, to Kensington, in the middle of Philadelphia, where traditional Republican candidates don't go. We have an opportunity to build a multi-ethnic working class majority to deliver a landslide. And I think I'm the only candidate in this race, young or old, black or white, to bring all of those voters along to deliver a Reagan 1980 revolution. We're going to do it in 2024.
Same question to you,
How come you
Governor.
never voted in a presidential election?
Oh my
until
God,
Biden-
I
Mike!
will answer that.
Shut
I will
up!
answer
30
that.
seconds. 30
Yep.
seconds.
30 second quick answer.
You guys need
No.
everybody's
get control of this debate.
Everybody's going to get a
Listen, we're getting control of the debate. This is a lightning round, not rolling thunder.